Hello everyone, it's Turn here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular online ladder battle, I will be piloting the Beastmen. My opponent over here will be piloting the Empire, so definitely a fun matchup. I'm a big fan of it. Very dynamic. Again, they both have pretty big army rosters, so there can be a lot of variance in these matchups. So as far as my army composition goes, I have a front line of Ungor Spearmen herds with the shields. Again, these are pretty good fodder units. They're cheap. They do have poor leadership, but again, I mean, looking at them with the leadership buffs that they currently have, 65 plus isn't that bad. And, you know, really, it's not as poor as one would think. They do have charge defense against large foes, which can be decent against Demogryph Knights and units of that nature. And again, I just had some extra resources towards the end of my purchasing, so I decided these would be some decent fodder rather than, pumping chevrons into higher tier units. On the secondary line, this is going to be the backbone of my army. I have a back line of Gore herds. So I really like these units. I feel like they're very cost effective for the 500 resources. Fairly high leadership. Low armor, though they are shielded. So against the missile fire of the Empire, hopefully they can hold their own a little bit better than unshielded infantry. In the back line here, I have Bestigor herds. So this is my strike team, my shock troops. Once this front line follows up, hopefully these guys can plug in and help to overwhelm part of the flank. So definitely a fan of these guys. I think they're kind of similar to Black Orcs or Great Swords, and a lot of people use them in the same way from what I've seen. In my back line, I have two groups of Minotaurs with great weapons. These guys are just so freaking cool. I feel like they're very powerful, and they're usually very cost effective for me, but they should be considering how expensive they are. So I do have two groups of those. As far as my leadership goes, I have Malagor the Dark Omen for the Lore of the Wild. Definitely a big fan of that. I love summoning the Cygors as well as Devolve and Trader Kin and those type of things. Then I also have a second Bray Shaman. A lot of times I don't actually invest in a Cygor in my initial army setup. I just bring two of these guys and summon two Cygors, and the amount of value you're getting from that is pretty absurd. What do they cost? I should really just look this up so I can accurately give this number to you guys, but I think they're around, 1,600 to 2,000 in that range. And the fact that you can summon two of them is just so absurdly powerful, so very good there. And then, of course, I have a Gorbel with the health potion, which I feel is very, very strong. So that's kind of a quick overview of my army. The only range I will have will be those two Cygors, so that should be interesting here. So as far as his army goes, he has Karl Franz on his Deathclaw, if I'm not mistaken. He has an Amber Wizard on an Imperial Griffin, so he's got some Davy Crockett action going on here. He's probably going to summon a Manticore. He already has, it's back there. Definitely a decent ability there. He has a Light Wizard back here, so two different Lords of Magic, which should be interesting. And then he also has a group of Demogryph Knights, and then also a group of Demogryph Knights with Halberds. In his front line, he has Spearmen, mostly Spearmen it looks like. So a full front line of Spearmen. Again, it looks like he invested most of his resources into these Demogryph Knights as well as augmentations for his Lords. So his melee core is not going to be that strong compared to mine. He's got two groups of handgunners. He has a group of great cannons, which do have the anti-large, which won't be bad against my Minotaurs and various other units. And then as far as his elite infantry goes, he has one group of great swords. So as far as just a pure infantry value, I have a much stronger infantry line with those Bestigor herds back there. But again, he does have those Demogryph Knights, which can be quite intimidating. So just to preface this battle, there is a lot of posturing and kind of siege. So I will be fast forwarding through quite a bit of this battle. So as far as our armies go, I just summon the Cygor, and then I summon his homeboy over here, the other Cygor. So I'm just getting in this position, and he only has one great cannon. So, personally, I feel I have a much stronger siege line than him. So I decided to move up a little bit. I know I will be taking some cannon fire, but again, these handgunners do have a shorter range than crossbowmen and those type of ranged units. So I'm not really worried about them. I figure I have two Cygors that I can outvalue his cannon here. So. And again, what's great is, he can't really come and deal with these Cygors with his goon squad over here, because I have these Minotaurs with great weapons just absolutely waiting for these guys, as well as a Gorbel. So it's pretty hard to dive on these Beastmen lines, especially if you don't have weak units like Ungor Raiders. And personally, I just prefer to get the Cygor spam instead of Ungor Raiders, because Ungor Raiders are kind of weak in my opinion. So he actually just threw a boulder, but nothing, no animation actually went off. So I wonder if it actually got thrown, But regardless, the boulders are going to start flying, and look at the damage that did. That is so absurd. So that's what I'm telling you. These Cygors are really, really strong. Not the most accurate, but when they do land, that is so valuable. And as you can see, look at that. That's essentially two groups of Spearmen, which have just taken substantial losses from the first volley. So, again, I'm just going to keep harassing and throwing these giant boulders at these guys, and now the handgunners are shredded. It's so powerful, and the fact that you can summon two of those Cygors is just so good. So he decides to land over here. I think he was getting a little desperate, but again, these Minotaurs with great weapons are not going to have any of Karl Franz's shit, and they're just going to chase him off, and he did take a little bit of damage from those already. And I also get Malagor and cast Traderkin on these guys. So not only does it lower their speed, but it does pretty decent damage to them. So that was definitely a favorable trade for me. The Minotaurs go back to their resting spot, and the Cygor bombardment continues. So again, you can see his front line is taking substantial damage, so definitely brutal. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit because there's a lot of just siege here, but you guys can see like one of his units of handgunners is essentially broken just from the Cygor harassment. So I'm just targeting his range units because I don't want to take a lot of fire when I approach with my main army. So he then pulls them back, and I decide, hey, if he's just going to run them further back, I don't want to overextend my Cygor, so I'm just going to, continue to lob at the front line here. He did pull in to fight with my Minotaurs, and he also has been targeting them with his cannon. So again, we are trading fire. I feel that, I'm getting a little bit better value out of this. And he did land Karl Franz to fight this Cygor, but I had this Gorbel waiting here. And Gorbels do a ton of damage, like a ton. And Karl Franz just took an absolute beating. And then also, I had the Bray Shaman as well as Malagor. So every time he came in, I was casting Traderkin or some sort of other nonsense on him and really making those trades not valuable for him. So again, I see that he's kind of weakened now. I mean, you can see these handgunners are just destroyed. His infantry line had taken substantial damage from the Cygors, and you can see even now he just lost 2 Demogryph Knights, which is a huge loss. Those are an expensive unit, really high value target. So those Cygors are just paying their dues. So again, my main army is now going to advance, and as you guys notice, every time I advance my main troop, I also advance my Cygors a little bit. That's definitely what I think you should do, because again, once you're entwined in melee here, you're not going to want your Cygors, sitting all the way back here throwing rocks, because then that would give, his Manticore and look at this boulder here, and his other mobile units a chance to go down and take out those Cygors. He could pull the Demogryph Knights around and just murder those guys. So again, it's good to keep them with your army, and once the fight gets really down and dirty, I would recommend pulling your Cygors into melee so they're not bouldering your own troops in the back. So he does use a magic missile effect there, which does some decent damage to those Minotaurs, but again, his army has taken substantial damage, and as you can see, if you look at his losses, he's already taken, almost 120 losses, give or take, and I haven't taken quite as many as that, so definitely favorable for me. So again, this is what I was talking about. You definitely want to pull these guys up because he was just waiting so he could go in and snipe, but thankfully I had the Gorbel and the Homeboy squad ready to just come back and take these guys out, so was not going to let that happen. So I engage across the line. The Gore Herds are just going to engage in the front line. Again, they're very sturdy units in terms of Beastmen. So they're gonna just hold their own here. And I see that he's pulling his greatswords around, so I pull a Bestigor herd as well as a Minotaur to deal with them, because these Minotaurs, in conjunction with this this Bestigor squad, will make short work of these guys. So as you can see, these guys are taking some serious damage already, and they're gonna go down rather quickly. And I don't know why he pulled these handgunners into combat. I think that might have been a pathing mistake, but regardless, they're going to have a really, really bad time against these Bestigor herds. So the front line is just going as expected. I pulled the Cygor in because they'll be able to collapse the Spearman line. And again, if the Cygor was alone, it would be a good matchup for the Spearman, but he is supported by these fodder units who are taking a lot of the damage, so it's going to be pretty cost-effective there. As far as this goes, the western flank, he was sending his Light Wizard in to harass and do a little bit of damage here, but this Gorbel was not having it. Look how fast these Gorbels are at taking out enemy heroes. And this guy's shattered. He's not coming back. So again, as I feared, these Demogryph Knights are now going to get onto the Cygor and cause some serious havoc. But again, I was kind of using this Gorbel as a bodyguard for it, and this Gorbel is... I can't speak enough about how good of a unit they are. They're so strong, although he keeps getting knocked over. And look at this, Cygor is doing pretty good. I mean, even against these Demogryph Knights, who in many ways are, not bad against it. So again, in the front line, things are going pretty well, I would say. This Cygor essentially collapsed to the center line here. Although he did push me back with Karl Franz and... not Karl Franz, excuse me, the Amber Wizard and this Manticore. They are very strong, and these Ungor Spearmen don't have the best leadership, so seeing a big, scary unit like a Manticore is certainly going to scare them off. And he also causes terror. That's something to consider. So I've seen a lot of Empire strategies where they will bring several Amber Wizards and summon a few Manticores, and it can be pretty strong because they do cause substantial leadership hits. So as far as over here, I should have been more aggressive in getting through to his cannons quicker because they were getting to just take pot shots on my eastern flank over here. So again, I believe I pat this Gorbel through because Gorbels are just the hunters. They're so good, and they can burst through lines even if it's... Well, that was a nice Cygor shot there. And he's going to get in here and just wreak havoc on these cannons, and then he will quickly make his way over to these handgunners to do some good work. So as far as this Empire front line, Karl Franz was able to salvage this eastern flank, although he's taken some serious damage earlier in the game. So he really can't land again in a contested area. I mean, he can land against gore herds and weak units like that, but if he lands near, even this Bray Shaman can come in and finish him off. So he has to be really careful there. And I'm also pulling Malagor over there because I figured I was losing his flank and they could use some leadership help over here. So I also pulled the Cygor back. I didn't want to be chasing units in the back with it. I wanted to have the Cygor in the heat of the action where he could be, not having to chase units and in combat, and just staying there and doing prolonged damage. So he's going to get in there and stomp the yard. And as you can see, these spearmen are just crumbling at the sight of this terrifying Cygor. And Malagor, of course, is in here doing his thing. So things are going well here. As far as over here, these Demogryph Knights are doing pretty well. They were able to chase down my western flank Bestigor herd, and they're just cutting them to pieces. So my western flank did collapse a little bit, but again, in the east, I was able to do quite well. This Cygor was able to chase off these spearmen who are now wavering, and they have these gore herds here. And my leadership is in really good health. And if you look in the back line, this Gorbel, he did take some damage, but I had a potion. So he chased off the handgunners, he chased off the cannon, and he's just the MVP this game. He killed the light wizard. I mean, and just fast and mobile and high damage, very resilient. I mean, the combat stats across the board are just so good. I mean, 100 armor, high leadership, 420 weapon damage with armor piercing and anti-large. I mean, you can't ask for much more in a unit, especially for how much it costs. So again, this Manticore comes in, but I do have my Malagor as well as my Bray Shaman, who, though they are casters, they do have very good combat stats. And again, these Cygors, they're hard to take down. It's not like a catapult or, a grudge thrower. They're heavy-duty melee troops, and they're stomping this Manticore. So I'm kind of just moving around with the Death Ball here, and I know the Demogryph Knights are kind of his last pocket of resistance. He does have a few Spearman units who are shaken and trying to come back into combat, but they're not going to last, and I'm also bringing back my routing units, these gore herds, and at this point it's essentially over. I believe Karl Franz died a little bit earlier to Traderkin. I was able to save up enough Winds of Magic to use that, so, and again, this Gorbel just tore apart his back line. If the Gorbel hadn't gotten back there, he could have had some handgunners who perhaps could have teed off on these units and could have changed the tide of the battle, and again, that damage he took from the Cygors early on was just, I think it was too devastating to come back from. It was definitely a tough situation, so definitely a good game there, and it was a lot of fun. So as far as my composition goes, Malagor did quite well. The Bray Shaman, again, he was just there to summon the Cygor, and he was just following around Malagor, kind of his bodyguard. And Ungor Spearherds, they actually got quite a few kills. I can't complain. Granted, they were fighting another low-tier infantry unit. They did pretty well. Goreherds did good at holding the line, and again, the Bestigors, as I hoped, got through and were able to break through those great swords with some Minotaurs. And again, this Minotaur group here just got absolutely bombed by that cannon. He just had the cannon shooting them the entire game. And he was also using some abilities, the spear from the Amber Wizard to damage it. But these other Minotaurs did an okay job breaking through those great swords. But again, they were cleaned up rather quickly by those Demogryph Knights. So it was definitely a very good game. And of course, the Gorbel was most certainly the MVP. His leadership, it was a little tricky. He did bring several, have diverse abilities in terms of his Winds of Magic and his lores, but, at the end of the day, it was a little reckless with Karl Franz diving into the Gorbel and the Cygor. I mean, he took, half of his HP from one dive, so that was definitely tough there. And again, that Cygor bombardment was really tough. And of course, Demogryph Knights are just such a good unit. They did great. They were very powerful, and that cannon did rack up quite a few kills as well. So really good game. I definitely had a lot of fun, and I just want to thank you guys all for watching. I really appreciate your support, and I'll be trying to bang out as much content as I can for you guys. Have an excellent weekend, and thank you all again. Take care.